Okay, the question was, could I give, and, you know, cause my latest scandal in ISKCON, could I give an example of a situation in which it would be appropriate for a devotee to put aside some rule or principle in order to save people? Is that the idea?
Yes.
Well, I can give examples that Prabhupada authorized and not get in trouble myself. Prabhupada, for example, sent his wonderful disciple Tamal Krishna Goswami to China. And Prabhupada was also aware that devotees were going in behind what was called the Iron Curtain. If you're young, you may not know what that is, which is astonishing. But, you know, during the Soviet Union, they actually snuck into the Soviet Union in order to preach. So going into these countries to bring Krishna consciousness is an example of that. Is an example of not following strictly rules. As far as nowadays, we live in such a permissive world. We live in such a permissive world that it's almost like too much is legal, not too little. But as far as our situations, yeah, okay, I'll give one example, which is sort of, you know, a little indirect, but I think is reasonably on the point. And that is that, well, again, I'll start with Prabhupada, and then, you know, give a few more examples. Prabhupada once said if someone's an alcoholic, they should think that Krishna is a taste of wine. It's interesting because Prabhupada came from an India which was so strict that he didn't even say whiskey. It's like wine. You know, if you were sinful back those days in India, you would drink wine, which in America is almost like lemonade. So obviously Prabhupada is not encouraging people to drink wine, but he's saying wherever you're at, start there and see Krishna there. So Prabhupada was often very liberal. I mean, Prabhupada knew when to be strict, he knew when to be liberal. When I took sannyas, one of the first letters I wrote to Prabhupada after taking sannyas in 72, oh my God, that was 46 years ago. I took sannyas, by the way, when I was 3 years old. So I was the youngest sannyasi in Gaudiya Vaishnava history, and my danda was like about that big. But anyway, when I took sannyas, I wrote Prabhupada a letter, and I told him that I was going to preach at the universities in America. And Prabhupada immediately wrote back to me and said, do not present Krishna consciousness as rules and regulations, which is why it's so popular to present the 4 principles at Sunday feast lectures. So Prabhupada said, do not present Krishna consciousness as a bunch of rules. He said it's the most sublime philosophy. So, and Prabhupada himself was very merciful. Obviously, in a temple, or those who are actually representing Krishna in a priestly capacity as Brahmins, they have to strictly follow. They have to strictly follow because they're in that high position. But in terms of bringing people to Krishna consciousness, even Prabhupada saying that just add Krishna, you don't have to change your life. I mean, of course, he meant externally. And because Prabhupada knew that it's just a necessary principle that if you grow, you outgrow. You can't grow without outgrowing. And so therefore, Prabhupada wrote to me as soon as I began my illustrious sannyas career, which was, you know, my very clever business plan, take sannyas in ISKCON. But anyway, so, because Prabhupada knew that if we just positively present Krishna consciousness, if people somehow become attached to Krishna or the friendship of devotees or prasadam or dancing, whatever, as they start to grow, they will outgrow these things. You know, parents, loving parents, don't go up to their kids and rip the toys out of their hands and smash them on the floor in front of them and say, grow up, you're 6 years old. You know, that they don't do that. If children get love and education and proper boundaries, they automatically outgrow these things if they're, you know, physiologically, neurologically normal. Then if they're given love and education and boundaries, they will automatically outgrow these things. So Prabhupada emphasized this, that, and so we're not cheating people, but so Prabhupada said, just add Krishna. It's all you have to do is add Krishna. Because he knew that people would outgrow this. as you can see, I'm avoiding more controversial things like, break into people's homes, steal their money, and use it for Krishna. Because we no longer think that we should do things like that. We really only broke into their gardens and stole their flowers. There was one glorious moment where the devotees totally stripped the famous rose garden at the Palisades Park in Santa Monica, one of the great days in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Anyway,